Hello, and welcome to the Ferguson Library Presents Introduction to Video Editing with me, Frank Skornia. So I'm the digital librarian for Adult and Information Services at the Ferguson Library, which means I handle a lot of our computer classes, including teaching them here on our YouTube channel, as well as a full-time reference librarian at the library, so I help people answer questions and with technology, including our digital platforms. So welcome tonight. Tonight we are going to be doing Introduction to Video Editing. We're going to be taking a very kind of basic look at how to start using a nonlinear video editor. But to start off, first I just want to talk about kind of some of the things doing if you're first time attending a class here on YouTube with the Ferguson Library, some of the things to kind of be aware of and to be able to follow along. So first up, what you're seeing is a slight delay from where I am right now. I think actually it might be a little bit longer than I've usually done, so you might not be seeing things till about 20-25 seconds after I've actually said it. But if you do want to participate, there are two different ways that you can kind of participate and ask me questions through the course of the class tonight. The first is you can use the YouTube chat, which will either be to the right of your video screen or underneath, depending on how large you've made your video on your screen there. So feel free to send me a question there, and I will see it and answer it when I think there's a good opportunity to answer the question. The second is there is a chat room on the online tech classes page. This is the address up here, and I'll talk about this in just a second. There's a chat room on there that you can also ask the questions, and I will see questions in either place. So use whichever one you find most convenient to get hold of me. So as I just mentioned, in order to kind of follow along and kind of participate along in the class, I do recommend going to visit the website that's right here above my head, fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. And when you do that, that will bring you to this page here. So this page here has kind of a lot of the information about our current online class series that we're doing. We're near the end of our series here. You can see we're right down here at Introduction to Video Editing. There is one more class that I'll be doing tomorrow night, Wednesday. It's an unusual one that it's Wednesday night. Everything else has been on Tuesday. But tomorrow's class is going to be looking at, so tonight we're looking at actually just like putting together using a video editor. Tomorrow we're going to look at actually like recording content on your computer using free OBS Studio software. OBS is normally used for broadcasting. It's what I'm using to speak out to you now, but it's also can be a very useful recorder on your computer. So you can record things like tutorials and demonstrations, or anything else. You can do presentations if you need to record. Since we're all working virtually, there are times where we need to kind of record ourselves, or we're not going to be able to do anything live through Zoom or something, or you want to record a Zoom kind of thing. You can use OBS to kind of help record and do all that there. You don't have to use it to broadcast out to things like YouTube or Facebook or Twitch. So tomorrow night we'll be looking at that there. So the other things to kind of pay attention on this page is you're going to scroll down, and if you want to, here's the chat room that I was telling you about before. So if you have any questions, you can ask your questions here. Ask your questions here, and I will see it and answer your questions. Otherwise, you can just ask them in the YouTube chat, and I'll see that there. You do have to be signed into your Google account and onto YouTube to be able to see, to be able to chat on the YouTube channel. So this here, you don't have to have any sort of login. You can be anonymous if you wanted to do that there. Over on the left over here, we have a list of all the different classes in the class materials. So to follow along for tonight's class, you'll want to come down to Introduction to Video Editing. And you're going to need a few things to be able to follow along as I'm doing this here. The first is you're going to need the video editing software that I'm going to be covering tonight. So tonight I'm going to be covering a piece of software called Lightworks. Lightworks is available for free with some limitations. So the freeware version it's fully featured until you get to the very end of the video making process. So for everything else that we're doing tonight, it's a really good introduction. It's free and available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So if you're a Mac user out there, you are more than welcome to go and download it and follow along with what we're doing as well too. So there's a link here to download Lightworks from their site. You do have to create an account on their site, and then it'll license the free version for you on there. Moving down, there is a link to the exercise handout. This will open as a PDF, and it will be this document here. And so what this will do is this gives it just some information about the class, gives some definitions and information about video editing. There's some information about the video editing process, and then there's some information about further study and practice at the end. So if you want to kind of continue, and I'll cover this a little bit more towards the end of the class too, about if you want to kind of continue your lessons on there. Come back here. The video clip information, actually I should probably open this up so I can show you what this looks like too. That would be this one here. So the video clip information just has here, what it does is it has some time codes for various clips from the sample videos that we're going to be using through the class. So that you don't have to go and pick out the time codes. And this will all make more sense as we continue along with the class. And I just realized I need a copy of this for myself. So you're watching me print it right now. This is me being prepared. Okay, so let us continue on here and such. And then the third thing that's on here that you'll want to be able to follow along with the class, and don't worry, I'm going to give you some time to go and get this all set up here before I start diving in and continuing on things, is you'll want to download, this is the practice videos and audio. This is going to be a large file. It is almost 200 megabytes, but what you want to do is right click on this file and you want to come to Save Link As. And then you want to choose a place. A good place is to go onto your desktop. I've created a folder here on my desktop called Intro to Video Editing, and just save it in there. You can see it's a zip file, so you'll have to then decompress it using whatever means that you do. Usually in Windows 10, let me download this here, and then I can show you. I should have had this downloaded before, but yeah. But I have a fast connection, so it's downloading pretty quickly. So yep, so now once it's downloaded, this is the fun of doing a live class. So now that it's downloaded, you can see I have the file here, video.zip, and on Windows 10, there's like a little extract right up here on the top. Click on that there, and then I can click on Extract All, and it will then open everything up. And in there, there'll be 4 files. There's the Coney Island, the Breathtakers, the city, and then there's a music file in there as well too. So you'll want to go and, once again, in order to follow along with tonight's class, you'll want to go download Lightworks from their website here, create an account, download it, and get it installed. You'll want to download the handout, the video clip information, and then the practice videos. So what I'm going to do is, this is what I'll be doing through the rest of the evening there and such, is I will go and demonstrate a skill and talk about it a bit, and then I will give a certain amount of time for you to go and do it yourself in your on your own screen. So what this is actually a good time. I'm just going to start talking about some stuff about video editing and video processing. So this is a good time to go and get these files here and install Lightworks if you want to follow along. And then we will, and then once we get to the point where I've kind of done some basic talking about just video production and video editing, and then we'll kind of dive into the software and start using it. So I will say it take about 10-15 minutes. Go and work on this here and such. If you have any questions about it, ask me in either of the chats, and I'm going to continue now. So once again, kind of go download these files here. And I'm going to pull this up again. You can still see the link here above my head. This is the link where you need to go and download the handouts and the different files. There will be links all over on the left. Expand the Introduction to Video Editing section. You'll see everything in there. So what are we going to be looking at in this class? So the purpose of this class is not really to learn a specific editor. We are going to be using the Lightworks editor, but the real purpose is to kind of introduce you to the basics of video editing. So it's to kind of introduce you to skills and terminology that you can take to any video editor. So if you have, if you're using Lightworks, or if you're using, say, like Windows Movie Maker or iMovie on your Macintosh, a lot of these same skills that we're going to be covering tonight will work in those same softwares. The same kind of principles, the same actions, and the same skills. Sometimes they might be termed a little bit different, or they might be like a different way of doing it in the software. But for the most part, everything that we're doing in tonight's class will work in almost any other video editing software. So even if you want to expand past this here and move on to things like Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro, or something like DaVinci, or I can't even remember. There's an Avid. Avid's the other really big professional video editor. If you move on to those there and such, these are skills that you're able to carry on into that there to start using those pieces of software. So what we're going to be looking at by the end of this class, what we're going to be looking at is in Lightworks, is we're going to look at how to create a project and how to add media files to that project to edit together. We're going to look at how to select clips from media files to become part of your video. We're going to look at transitions between the clips. And I will say right now, Lightworks is a little bit different with its transitions than almost every other piece of software. So there'll be some kind of unique things that we'll have to use here. We'll look at how to add an audio track to our video file. So all of our videos has audio, but we're going to add kind of a background music track to everything that we're doing there. And then finally, we're going to look at looking at adding like titles and credit scenes to the beginning and ends of the video. So as I mentioned, we're using Lightworks. Lightworks is a pretty powerful video editor. I've been very pleased with it. That's available for a free license for Mac, Windows, and Linux. It has basically the capability to do almost anything that you want to do for basic video editing. The main downside of Lightworks is that at the output at the end. For the free version, will not output like a full HD, like a full 1080p video. And I'll talk about what 1080p means in just a second. But you can still do high definition. You can still do 720. And so it's good for kind of getting your feet wet and kind of really trying something out without having to splash out a lot of money for some other like fancier video editing software. So some kind of quick definitions that I want to go through. I'm not going to go through all of the definitions on the handout, and I'm going to pull the handout up on the screen here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, what I'm looking at. So I'll pull this up here. So some of the definitions kind of that I'll be using through the class, and if I do use any other terminology that you don't quite understand, please ask me in either of the chats, and I'll go back and define what I'm saying in this regards. So the first thing is something like is the idea of aspect ratio. So the aspect ratio is really just the width and the height of the video that you're looking at there. And this is where the idea of 1080p or 720p comes in. And so what happens is you can convert between different aspect ratios. During most of film history was shot at by 16 by 9 video. The 16 by 9 here, which means that there are 16 pixels wide to, it would be like 16 pixels wide to 9 high, whatever multiple of that there. This was the common for widescreen TV, DVD, and high definition video. This is kind of the standard that's now. There were a bunch of films that were released in kind of a wider format called Cinemascope, which is a 21 by 9 aspect ratio. Which means that there was like 21 pixels across for every 9 pixels high. And this is where, like, if you've ever, when we were all going to the movie theater in the before times, there'd be times where you're sitting there and watching a movie, and when the movie starts, there'd be curtains on either side of the screen. And sometimes you just watch those curtains kind of move out wider. What that's doing is that's converting from like the trailers and like the advertisements, which are showing in this 16 by 9 aspect ratio, to the movie, which is showing in a 21 by 9 aspect. So it's a movie shot with a wider. And so it's wider and usually kind of narrower view there. And you'll see it now, even like on your like widescreen TVs now. Like you'll be watching a video and you'll notice that there might be like black bars. Even though it's like a widescreen, it fills up the whole width of the screen. There might be like black bars at the top and bottom of the screen. And what that is that's in this 21 by 9, the Cinemascope. That means that movie was shot in a wider format. So that's really kind of the aspect ratio. The 4 by 3 aspect ratio here, that is the standard kind of squarish TV format that was used for most of the 20th century. It wasn't until like the early 2000s and the early 2010s that we started regularly getting widescreen TVs and computer monitors, and that our media has shifted from being that kind of square shape out to being more widescreen as being kind of our standard. But when you watch a lot of, say, older television shows that were filmed during the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. A lot of them there are going to be square, which is why you'll also see like the black bars on either side of those on your TV screen, or it might zoom in and things will get kind of cut off on the top or bottom. That's because they're trying to fit that 4 by 3, that square, into like a wider rectangle. And so those boxes, that's called, oh God, what's it calling? Postboxing is usually kind of what it's called. either the bars on the top or the bars on the side. There's actually a term for that there. Kind of just moving through on our definitions here. Some of the things that we're looking at. A chyron is an electronically generated caption superposed over your video footage. A lot of fancy words. What a chyron really is usually it's a title or text that will show up at the bottom of the screen. A good example, let me go back to my my face cam here and such. The chyron, like this little section over here underneath my name here, that's actually a kind of a chyron that's kind of showing up. But what it does is it kind of provides information. You'll see it on news programs, like the little bar that's on the bottom, or on sports programs, a little bar on the bottom that might kind of give information. The score presentation on a sports program is a chyron that shows up on there. And it's usually shown above the video footage. So one of the things you start thinking about when you start working with video editing is you start thinking about layers and kind of having things on top and behind other things. So what you'll do is you'll have your video there, and then you'll have your chyron that will be kind of in front of the video there. And so it might actually block or be something that's behind. Similar, actually, if you look at kind of the video around there and such, like I am superimposed on top of the screen that you're seeing there. So there's like different layers that are involved. So you start thinking about those layers as you do video editing. Compressors and Codecs. This is the software or firmware used to kind of to really create and kind of put together digital video files so that they can be watched on other people's computers and other people's media. Most video editors will have this kind of built in, and we'll deal with it there until you're like really comfortable with all of kind of the video content. It's easiest just to kind of go with the defaults that your video editing software kind of recommends. The editor, this is where you perform track-based video editing or nonlinear video editing. Each track contains multiple clips in sequence, one after another, and you have unlimited tracks of the editor. Once we go into Lightworks, I'll point out what they call by tracks there. Once again, the tracks help with this kind of idea of layering that we see. So you can actually have like multiple videos playing at the same time, kind of on top of each other, and you can kind of arrange how they compile and see. So it'd be something similar to like a picture-in-picture that we see like with the news, when the news presenter's performing, and they have the little box that pops up that shows kind of a video or graphics or something on there. That's using different tracks of video and kind of superimposing them on top of each other there. And I keep using the term nonlinear editor. And what nonlinear editor means is that you can actually you can create your different clips of your media that you're putting into your video in whatever order you want, and then you can arrange the order. You don't have to do it from the beginning of the video in order to the end of the video, as we used to have to do with film strip. When you're editing, I never did it with film strip, but if you were working with film strip, you would cut like the first scene that you do, and you'd have a strip of film, and you would attach it there, and then you would attach the next scene, and you would work linearly from the beginning to the end. With nonlinear, because it's all digital, you can move and arrange things around as you see, and we'll see that as we start working with our clips in our video here. Encoding goes with the compressors and codecs. It's what kind of gives your format. You've probably seen common video formats like MP4 and .mov or .avi files. Those are all kind of the different kind of formats, and the encoder is kind of what determines how that all goes. I'm not going to go through all of these here. Let me just do kind of the important ones. The important one here, frame rate. Frame rate is how many frames per second the video is playing. So traditionally, when film first really kind of started, there was a lot of experimentation, but they finally settled on the standard of 24 frames per second. So from about the early 20th century, about 1900, 1905, 1906, when Thomas Edison was first doing, actually even earlier than that there, when Thomas Edison was first doing stuff with film cameras and making and creating the first film cameras, he did a lot of experiments and settled on that 24 frames per second was the optimal frame rate for what the technology could handle at the time. So how fast the technology can play the video, can actually play the film, to make sure that when we're watching our humans, we don't notice kind of a noticeable like a jerkiness or like a jagged motion happening in the video. So what this basically means is that in 1 second of film, when you watch a film, 1 second, there are 24 still pictures that play through in that 1 second. And so that's 24. That's 24 frames for each frame of the film per second. And if we have fewer, like if you do something like 15 frames per second, it's slow enough that you actually start seeing kind of gaps. And so like the motion ends up being a lot jerkier. Instead of it being kind of a smooth motion, it ends up being very jerky. In Europe, the standard was standard TV. When TV started becoming a thing in the 1940s and the 1950s, they settled on 30 frames per second as their standard. It's so about 30 frames per second, and in Europe they settle on 25 frames per second. So depending on where your video sources are, or where you're shooting, or where like your camera is from, there is there might be kind of different settings on there. So typically now, most cases that when you record video with a modern day camera, whether it be a camcorder or it be the camera on your phone or it be your digital camera, you'll be shooting at 30 frames per second here in the United States, or up to 60 frames per second. And I just realized I have an incomplete sentence there. I can't even remember what I meant to say on there. But current trends for digital video have been to kind of push towards 60 frames per second, which is even faster. And all it does is the more frames that you have per second, it's just the smoother that the action shows on there and such. So if you think about it, we're almost triple what we were seeing before, the 24 frames per second, and almost at 60, which means that the action, the kind of the motion from one action to another that you're seeing on the screen, it ends up being a lot. There's a lot more detail captured, and it's just a smoother capture. So that's what frame rate really is. And so you'll be thinking when you're doing your video, you'll be thinking between 30 or 60 frames per second generally here in the United States today. The other big thing to kind of keep in mind is this idea of resolution. And I'll be talking about this, I'll be showing this again when we actually start creating a project in Lightworks. So resolution is the width and the height of the image measured in pixels. So remember before when I was talking about aspect ratio and I was saying the 16:9 and the 21:9. Basically what it is, it's the width 16:9, the height. And then it gets multiplied out to these larger numbers here. And then there's some different parts of the resolution. So there's things like interlaced scanning, which was kind of the in-between technology that we did from going from what they called standard definition, which is what we watched for most of the history of TV and film, standard definition, what's known as standard definition. The transition that went to this kind of like interlaced high definition to now what they call progressive and so what happened with interlace was it was a limit of technology, was that it would only show like half the frame. So it would actually split the frame, like the picture that you're looking at, it would split it into all the individual lines. So if it was 720 pixels high, there would be 720 lines on there. And so every second or every frame would show 360 of those lines, every other line. And then the next frame would show the other 360 lines. And so what that did was that it meant that it was only like encoding half the technology or half the lines at a time, which kept the file sizes down, made it easier to broadcast. But as our technology has improved, we now do what they call progressive scan, which means that the entire image is shown in that one frame, that 1/60th of a second, so that 60 frames per second there. Resolutions are commonly referred to as standard definition, high definition, and now there's ultra high definition. And you can kind of see I have them over here and such. So we had this 480p progressive or 480i interlace there, which is our SD. And so this was the kind of the technology that we used for most of the history that we have of TV and film. And so this was usually, it was 720 pixels wide and 480 pixels high. And so this is that approximate 4:3. Remember I was pointing out that that aspect ratio, that 4:3 earlier. Then we moved into 720p, which was kind of the first entry into what's known as high definition. So 720p is still defined as high definition, but it's kind of at the very low end of high definition now. And so what that was is that meant that we had 1,280 pixels across and 720 pixels high. So you can see this compared to this year and such, there was a lot more information that was showing up on the screen at that point there, and we could get a lot better detail. So this is where the high definition comes in. Is that If we're looking at a screen about the same size, but we have a lot more pixels on there, which means it's a lot more detailed. And we've all zoomed in. Like if I go and zoom in on this here, oh, that was way too much. See if I can find some text. You can kind of see, or we've all zoomed in. Oh, I'm in a margin. Come on. Find some more. There we go. Well, this one's coming in pretty clear, but if I zoom in even more, can I get it to? No, okay, this is not going to do it. But we've all zoomed in on a picture, and eventually the picture ends up getting like really blurry. Fit one page. It ends up getting really blurry. What happens is you're kind of meeting the limit of that resolution there. So the more pixels that you have in the resolution, the more detail you get within there. And that's where we get into like the newer high definition. So high definition now really is 1080p. So it's 1080, it's 1080 pixels high and 1920 pixels wide. And so when you go and buy like an HD TV now, that isn't 4K. We'll talk about 4K in just a second. You can see 4K here. But like when we were buying HD TVs, it meant that there was that was the resolution that the TVs or the monitors was showing on there. 4K is the newest Ultra HD. So now there's 4K, what is called 4K and 8K, which are the newest kind of what they call Ultra HD resolutions. And so 4K is 3,840 pixels. So you can see almost 4,000 there by 2160. So it's almost double. It actually is double what we were getting with the 1080p there. And so what it is the 4K comes from this here, doubling both dimensions. You get 4 times as many pixels on the screen. You didn't think you were going to be doing a math class tonight, did you? 4 times as many pixels on the screen. So this is about 1,000 or 1K, and so 4 times is 4K. That's where kind of the name comes from. So that's resolution. Again, most of the stuff, if you're using, unless you really know that the camera that you're shooting with is like 4K, most of the stuff that you'll be doing on cameras nowadays, whether again if you're buying a camcorder, you're using like a standalone digital camera, or you're using your phone. Phones are really great video devices now if you have good lighting. It will generally be 1080p, and it will be 30 or 60 frames per second, depending on what your setting is. And then we'll be talking about transitions in a second. So yeah, so those are the definitions. Again, if I use any other terms through the course of this class, please let me know in the chats, and I will go back and kind of define and kind of recover what I'm using there. So I just want to kind of send out just kind of a quick reminder again. Hopefully if you've gone to the online-tech-classes page that's right here above my head, and installed installed Lightworks from their site, and then downloaded the kind of the handouts here, as well as the practice videos and audios if you want to follow along. You're more than welcome to just watch and then kind of go and practice all this stuff later. This video is going to be recorded and it's going to be available on YouTube after this class, so you can always come back and kind of and practice at that point there if you just kind of want to watch and follow along with what I'm doing. So the next thing I just kind of want to quickly go over before we do a dive into starting to use Lightworks is I just kind of want to quickly go over the video editing process. And actually, I want to go back to the screen and open up my handout here. Here we go. So I always like to kind of, because this class is more than just looking at how to use a specific piece of software. It's also kind of to try to help you learn about the thinking about how to create a video, a digital video. And depending on how complex your project is or what you're doing, you may not have to go through all the steps on this process. And I'm going to just zoom in just a little bit more to kind of make it a little bit easier to read on your screen. There we go. And I can always scroll. So, so this is kind of the process that especially if you're doing like a big video project, kind of the things that you want to go through and think about as you're doing. The idea of planning ahead of time saves you a lot of time later on in the process there. I mean, if you're just doing something really quick, like for your kid's soccer team and you're putting something together, you may not have to go through all of these steps. But if you're looking at doing like a larger project, this is kind of a helpful thing to kind of help guide you along the steps. So the first thing, as with any project that you want to do, is you want to start by planning. Think about what you want your video to be like. So what shots or images? So what kind of images or what kind of like scenes are you going to have in your video to put together the story that you want to do? And so this is where the idea of storyboarding comes in. So storyboards are usually what they are is just like little drawings that are just boxes like a comic. It looks like a comic with frames on there that they kind of draw in kind of a rough sketch of what they imagine that scene or image to look at, just so when they're planning they can then easily kind of put those together. And then it almost becomes like a checklist too, that they've shot everything that they're looking for to meet all the different pieces of the storyboard. Think about where you'll do the shooting. Is it something that you're going to be doing at home? Are you going to need to go out onto locations? Do you need to find those locations? Do you have something like an idea in mind of a location you need to go out and find it, or have somebody else go and find it, depending on how big your staff is for this kind of thing? And then finally, what equipment will you need? Now, we're very lucky today. Most of us have smartphones. And most modern smartphones, even the lower end ones, have decent cameras on there that can shoot actually relatively good video. It's really surprising how good the video that you can capture on a phone is. But video is also more than just the phone. Video is more than just the video, the visual part of it there and such. It's also audio. So you do need to think about like the recording of the audio. So most cameras have built-in microphones, and they can do a fairly good job. I mean, sometimes they can get a bit noisy, so you may want to start focusing on things like separate microphones, again, depending on how elaborate of a project that you want to do. So think about what equipment will you need. Will you need, you have your camera. Will you need microphones? Are you going to be shooting in dark areas? So do you need to have additional lighting to be able to light up the area that you want to do? So you have to kind of think about those things and kind of plan so that when you actually go out and shoot, you're bringing everything you need with you. Will you need a tripod, or are you going to be doing it like handheld? Those kind of things. The next step is what they call the production step. Is you actually go out and shoot your project. So that's where you're using the camera to capture your footage. And some tips along this line here are: do multiple takes if possible. Sometimes what you're shooting can only be grabbed once, or you're just shooting like what they call B-roll. You're just shooting things happening naturally around you, scenery, whatever's kind of going on around you, location information. But you can also do kind of different records of those there. But sometimes there's things you can only capture once. Your kid shooting the soccer ball onto the goal. Unless that happens again, you're only going to get that there once. But sometimes if you are more in control, take multiple takes so that if something goes wrong with one, or when you're in the editing, you can choose pieces and get kind of the best parts of it all together and put it together. Try different angles of the same scene if possible. So you may have more than one camera. Set up those cameras so that they can kind of see different angles. Or if you only have one angle, shoot a couple takes from one angle. If you have only one camera, shoot a couple takes from one angle, and then move the camera and your lighting and everything, and shoot a couple takes from another angle. And so what this does is this allows you to kind of create a more dynamic view in your video. So instead of everything just being still from one view, you're able to have, okay, you're looking at this person and they're talking, and then, so you could have a view of just two people sitting and talking to each other, next to each other. But you could do what's the classic is, okay, have the camera here so you're seeing this person talk, and then you have the camera shooting, you're seeing then this person talk, and you're able to kind of swap between them there, and you're able to focus on just those faces instead of having the viewer focus on both faces. So kind of think about those things. That comes back into your planning process. Are you going to have a wider shot? Are you going to have close-up shots? And then expect that you will not shoot everything that you need or want. You will have to go out and reshoot stuff. You'll have to go out another day. You'll get home, you'll open it up into the editor, and you'll find that what you shot that day was just crap, and you're gonna have to go redo it again. We are lucky with the cameras that we're using nowadays. You can like preview them right there on the spot, but sometimes you can see things on your big monitor at home than you can on like the little camera screen. The next step after you've shot all your footage there is you need to import your media, which is actually moving the media from the camera into your editing system. And by editing system is whatever editing software that you're using. The import process is similar for most different video editing software. But it's good to set up a system. And so, and once you've set up the system, you also want to then organize your media. And so these are kind of tips that I have for organizing the media there and such. figure out a naming scheme for the files that will help you keep track of what you shot and why you shot it. So this is where you might name things like, instead of just like, okay, this is video footage 1, video footage 2, video footage 3. That is not helpful to you later on when you're trying to find a specific shot. But if this was location A, scene 1, take 2, and then location A, scene 1, take 3. You know that those, you can look at, say, just those two videos, the take 2 and take 3, and they're going to be similar to each other, and you might be able to pull out things that are useful from there and such. So figure out a way to name your files so that'll allow you to keep track of what you shot. While you organize your media, you're going to decide which footage you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. So just like before, you're not going to shoot everything that you need or want. You're also going to end up shooting a lot of stuff that you're not going to want to keep. There's going to be those false starts. There's going to be the miscues. There's going to be the shot, the bloopers, the gaffes, all this kind of stuff. So you're not going to use everything that you shoot. And that's why we have an editor. We're editing out the pieces that we want to use. And then after you've organized everything, you're going to go back to your original plan. Go back to step 1 and look at, do you have all the shots and images that you want or need? If not, you might have to go out and get more footage, or you might be able to get that information from another source. But so it's kind of recursive, is that you get to step 4 here, organizing. You look at what you have, then it says, okay, am I ready to proceed to start putting it all together, or do I need to go get more stuff? And it's always good to kind of get all of that footage together before you sit down and editing, because things that you do in the editing process might affect later on. So the next step here is edit your story. And so the edit the story is you're assembling the shots in the order that you want to tell your project story. So your project is going to have a story. Whatever video that you create is going to have a story that you want to tell. And this is where you kind of assemble everything together to tell that story that you want to tell. And this is the step that we're going to be really looking at today. Is we're going to be looking at this step 5, edit your story. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff around that we're really not covering, but this is kind of where we're really kind of going to be focusing on there. The next step is trim your story. So what happens is you've assembled your clips and your shots together, and so now you're going to kind of adjust them to make sure that it kind of smoothly flows from one clip or one shot into the other there and such. You want to kind of put transitions in. You want to make sure that you don't have like extra footage at the beginning or end of the different clips. You're just going to kind of clean things up, as it were. The next step is add transitions. So transition effects help amplify the story you're telling. So it allows you to kind of flow from one scene to another, or you could just have abrupt jumps or cuts on there, depending on, again, what you want to do or how you're telling your story. You can use a variety of different transitions. And hopefully tonight we will look at how to do transitions in Lightworks. They are a little bit complicated, but I'll kind of cover them and such. Just kind of see how they work and kind of do their different kind of way to kind of help tell the story. Then you're going to add titles. And so titles are used to provide information to your audience that they cannot get in another way. When you're planning and thinking about a video project, one of the rules, one of the kind of the useful rules to keep in mind is that you want to show and not tell as much as possible. You want to be able to show visually more than what you're telling, than have somebody talk and tell the information or have text on the screen. Being a librarian and loving books, I hate to say it, but when somebody's watching a video, they want to read as little as possible. Especially since a video has a fixed amount of time, people are different speed readers. But there are times sometimes where you just have to provide additional information on the screen than your visuals or your audio is able to tell. So you have things like opening and closing credits. The opening credits often have titles. It has your production staff. It has maybe some of the figures in there and such. The closing credits is going to have kind of all the information about who was in there, who was involved in making the video, or other information that you want to have in those closing credits. This is like the afterwards, and you kind of give some information about what happened that you may not have been able to shoot. So if we go back and look at, did you get all the shots that you want or need, sometimes being able to put in titles or information is going to fill in the gaps for footage that you were not able to shoot before. And then there's chyrons and subtitles. So chyrons, I was talking about before, are just like little pieces of information on the bottom. So they'll give things like they'll give identifying information for people who are talking on the screen. They'll give location information if it's necessary. So like you change locations and now it's saying Connecticut River, October 27th, 2020. And you're showing a river going by. Now you're telling people what that river is because that's not something that they know unless they're intimately familiar with that location that you were at. Subtitles are the text of the person speaking. And so they're either used to help provide information for like unclear speaking, like if somebody's saying something and saying maybe there's noise that got recorded that overcome them, and so that they're what they said is unintelligible, either from they mumbled or they have an accent that might be a little bit difficult, and you want to kind of clarify just kind of what they're saying on there, such, or there's a lot of outside noise. Or it can also be a translation. So we see subtitles a lot for translations, where somebody's speaking in a foreign language and you want to provide subtitles in a different language. So if you're making a video that you wanted to be able to say cover, in Stanford, we have a good size Hispanic population in Stanford, and we want to be able to cover both English and Spanish speakers. You can have your video in English, and then you can put Spanish subtitles on there so that Spanish speakers are able to then follow along with the video. So subtitles help make your video kind of more inclusive and also better understand. Moving down, and I promise we will get to the video editing very shortly. Add effects. So effects are things like special effects. We all talked about that. We all know about kind of special effects. So it's like your explosion special effects or different sounds, or like different visual effects that you're doing. Lightworks offers some variety of effects in there, and then you can kind of pay to unlock more visual effects if you need to. Always plan to spend more time working on the effects than you expect. This rule is also true for editing. Always expect that when you're in the editing process, right here at step 5 through like step 9, actually, all of these here and such, this is going to take a lot longer than you expect. Some of the kind of the rules of thumb that I've seen out there and such is that editing sometimes can take about 4 times as long per minute of video. So if you have a minute of video, it takes about 4 minutes to fully edit that minute of video. So if you're looking at doing like a 60-minute, an hour-long video, it's going to take you 4 hours or longer. Expect about 4 hours or longer to kind of get that all put together. Step 10, mix your audio. So make sure that your audio matches the quality of the footage that you're using. So we're going out there and you've done all this hard work doing a fabulous job. You've gotten these really interesting shots and angles and you've put it all together and such. And then you go back to it and it sounds like all of your people who are speaking on there, speaking like they're sounding like they're underwater. Or there's a lot of noise. You were by like a highway and cars went by, or there was a helicopter buzzing around overhead. So things about this here: know your equipment. How well does your camera record audio? Does your camera record audio pretty well, or does it tend to be a bit noisy? Does it capture a lot of things that you don't want to capture? So during your planning phase, decide if you're going to record your audio separately with a good microphone. So you can buy separate microphones and you can record that to like a separate audio recorder and have a separate sound file. And that's where you see things like we've always seen the classic like clapboard that they use when they're shooting film or TV shows. And on that clapboard actually provides a lot of information. They have written on there, they have things like the scene and the take, and then some other information on there, so that when the editor is sitting down looking at it, they look at that view and so this is scene 45, take 3. They know exactly where it fits into the whole process of thing. But that clap sound, where they have the clap thing, it kind of comes down and gives you that sharp sound there and such. That's also key for the editing and audio process, because what that will do is that closing sound. The editor can find that exact moment where the clapboard closes, and on the audio it creates a spike on the audio wave, and so they can line up that spike on the audio wave with that closing of the clapboard, and then what it does, it syncs up, it synchronizes the audio to the video. It makes it so that what happens is the audio is now at the exact same time as the video is going. So that's what that clapboard is. So if you're going to record video separate or the audio separately there and such, use a clapboard or use something like a clap, just clap your hands really sharply, just so visibly in the camera. So then you can line up that sharp spike on the audio graph to your hands coming together, and that will kind of sync up the audio. And then finally, output your project. So decide how you want to view and share your video. So look at the available file formats, codecs, frame rates. This is all stuff that when you get to the end, you'll be familiar with your video editing software. You'll kind of know what you need to do here and such. Look at the platforms that you want to share your video on. Are you going to upload it to YouTube? Are you going to go to Vimeo? Is it something that you're just going to like share with other people? Or is it something that you're putting together to submit to like a contest or something? Look at the requirements and make sure that you kind of output your video out to those requirements there. So that's the quick, dirty kind of video editing process. I did have plans before the pandemic struck of actually expanding this video editing class larger to explore more parts of the video editing process. And hopefully this is something that we'll be able to do in the near future, where we're going to be able to do a lot more shooting of our own video and kind of putting things together. But for now, unfortunately, this is kind of what we have. So please let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully by this time you have gone and downloaded the Lightworks software. You have downloaded the let me bring this back up here. You've downloaded Lightworks, and you've downloaded the practice videos and audios and this video clip information here, because now we're going to go in and we're going to start looking at the Lightworks software. Sorry, I've been talking for 45 minutes and I need a drink. So once you've downloaded and installed Lightworks, this is what you get. When you open it up, they'll ask for like a login. You'll log in with the account information that you made, and you are then presented with this screen here. This is the project screen in Lightworks. And let me just get my notes out of the way. And so what you usually do is you're going to be starting a new project. This is where if you have a project going, you'll see them here. You'll be able to jump right into it. But we also want to go through it, and we're going to, up here at the top left, we're going to go and create a new project. And so what we're going to do is this gives us our new project box here. So the first thing that we're going to have here is we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to call this Ferguson Library Class Video. And then we have, remember I was talking about frame rate when we were going through kind of the definitions. You're going to be able to choose the frame rate. And so you can choose, and so this is going to be the frame rate that when you output it, this is going to be the frame rate that it comes into. Now, a lot of cases, if you're looking for, again, you're going to look at the requirements of whatever project or whatever platform that you want to share it on. The reason, and we're back. Okay, sorry for that. There's probably a delay. My streaming software kind of got disconnected. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I'm seeing the preview. So now we're back. What you'll generally want to do is you want to choose auto. Because what auto will do, Lightworks is generally smart enough that it will figure out the best frame rate for the footage that you're bringing into the video. Don't really have to worry about custom metadata or notes. This is where you just kind of put some more information if you want. But then what we'll do is we'll create. And what this will do is this will take us into the Lightworks kind of, I'm trying to think what to call it. It's kind of the Lightworks editing kind of toolbox that we have here. And I actually just need to make sure. Yeah, okay, yeah. The other thing that you want to do is you do want to make sure that, let me make sure I'm in the right place. Project layout fixed. Okay. The one setting that you do want to do is you want to make sure that, at least if you're following along with me here and such, so I'm here. Let me go back into this. I went back using the top left up here, the back to exit to go back to my project browser. Over on the top right, there's this little gear sign right up here. If you click on that there's going to be a project layout, and Lightworks offers two different project layouts. They offer a fixed and they offer a flexible. And I always recommend kind of going with the fixed until you're really comfortable with it, because it keeps everything kind of in the same place and kind of makes it kind of more convenient to use. So you want to make sure that, I think it's by default it's set to flexible, so you do want to change that to fixed if you're going to be following along with what I'm doing. Do that there, then we're going to double click back on our project, and we're going to come back into here, and we come into what's known as the log area. And I'm going to do kind of a quick tour of everything that we see here. So this big box that we're seeing right here, this is tied with this little section over here. This is the project content. So this is where all the different pieces of the video that we're making are going to live and exist. Right up here is a preview for those little pieces in the context. And so when we have videos added into here or an audio into and such, we can use this here to preview to make sure that this is exactly what we're looking for. And then down here is just metadata. This is information about that information. So this part here is useful for that organize your media step. So we're going to import the media. So basically, kind of, if we go back to our video process here, basically what we've done is, what I've done for you is we've kind of done the plan. I've shot the project. I've gotten videos from the Internet Archive, public domain videos that we're using. So we've shot the project there. And now we're kind of at this step, import your media. And then this project view that's in Lightworks here is useful for that next step, the organized media. So you can see, you can kind of put in a lot of information and notes over here about the different information. So it makes it easy. So if you have a lot, we're not going to deal with a lot tonight, but if you have a lot of videos and a lot of pieces that you're putting together for a really big project, it is helpful to kind of fill this all out so that you don't get lost in kind of everything that you have. At the very top of the screen up here, we have several different tabs, and so it will open up in this log tab. The next tab is the edit tab, and this is where we're going to spend most of the rest of this class. This is where we actually do the actual work at editing and putting together the video here in Lightworks. So the edit section here is actually filled up of shows a couple different kind of pieces right now. You can see we have 3 different kind of notable boxes. This top one up here is the project contents. This is the same project contents that we had over here in the log tab. Over here, we have a sequence preview. This is kind of where you start seeing your project being put together. So Lightworks calls kind of each video that you're putting together sequences. And so what happens is you can put together different sequences of video, and then you can put different sequences together. So you can kind of work on things like piecemeal and like different parts and kind of then expand out. So for our exercises, when we're practicing working on things here, we're going to be looking at it's going to be going into this like sequence number 1. So this will allow us to preview the video as we're putting it together. And then down here on the bottom, this is probably the most important part of this window of the editor window. This is the timeline. And so this is where you're going to be able to kind of see and move different parts of your project around to put them into the order that you want to put them in. Now, Lightworks is what's known as a multi-track nonlinear editor. So nonlinear basically means that we can move the pieces around whatever we want. We're not working from the beginning to the end in order. Multi-track means that you can have multiple video tracks simultaneously happen and multiple audio tracks. And tracks are, so you can see each of the, right now, Lightworks is showing there's 3 different lines here. There's this top one, which they labeled V1, and then there's this one, and then there's this bottom one here, A1, A2, and then A3, A4. So right now there are 3 different tracks on this in this sequence here. There's one video track, this V1, and then there are 2 audio tracks, and the 2 audio tracks are stereo audio, left, right, A1, A2, but you can have multiple kind of audios. And so you have things like your video will play, your video will have its own audio, but then you can add in like another audio onto another one of these tracks. We're not going to play a lot with video track. Well, we'll play a little bit with video tracks when we deal with some transitions. But we'll play a bit more with the audio tracks when we actually kind of put in our own audio onto the video that we're working on. So you can kind of see how these kind of work. Continuing the tour, right up here on the top, we have the VFX tab. Allows us to add variety of different visual effects. And so different kind of visual effects, you have things like colors, so you can kind of change the colors. You can kind of skew everything to a certain color. You can do black and white, sepia, depending on what you want to do. DVE, I'm not exactly sure what all of these here are, but you can kind of go in and kind of play around with things. There's key framing. Key framing's kind of an interesting thing, being able to adjust different coloring and kind of color balancing on there. Mattes, you get kind of your color bars, or your color matte would be like your black screen or something. We'll be looking at this here when we add our titles in. mixing, so we have being able to kind of blend together different images or different video tracks on there. Right now I don't have any plugins to add on there, but this is stuff that you can buy from Lightworks. Stylize allows you to blur, allows you to do kind of like fades and do kind of different kind of things. So it's something really kind of go around and play with. We're not going to spend a lot of time looking at the visual effects for tonight's class, but it's something I do encourage that if you do want to kind of play around, come in here and kind of play around with the way these all different kind of works. Finally, text is where we get our titles, we get our crawl. So a crawl is like a news ticker kind of going across the bottom of the screen. A roll is like your closing credits where it goes from the bottom to the top and it just kind of rolls through and goes to the end of the list. And then titles are just text that kind of shows up on there. And then there's things like these lower thirds. These are those chyrons that we're talking about there, and they have a variety of kind of different way of kind of organizing those. And the reason why they're called lower third is that they typically fill up like a third of the height of the screen on the bottom. So it's the lower third is where that stuff will show up. And if you ever watch like videos or documentaries or you're watching on the news, you'll notice that chyrons all tend to be just a third of the way up. Like they don't go higher up in there, such because then they start interfering with more of the visuals on there. And then there's audio. Lightworks has a kind of built-in audio editor, so you're able to kind of do some tweaking and matching of your audio in here as well too. Again, this is not an area that we're going to spend a lot of time tonight. It's kind of outside the scope of what this class is covering, but it's here, and it's something where you can kind of go in and play around with as well too. And you can kind of see like it matches up. You have our timeline here. We still have that V1 track. It's a little bit smaller up here, but then we have our audio tracks here, which are kind of a little bit more prominent. Okay, so I have been talking for an hour and we haven't done any editing yet. So let us dive in and start with how to start using Lightworks to start putting together videos. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come here to the log tab, and the first thing that we will need to do is we need to add files into our project here. And I need to remember, this is kind of organized a little bit differently than it does. So I'm going to come down here to the libraries down on the bottom left. You can kind of see, okay, I have the Ferguson library logo the way. I'm going to just move you over here behind me. You know what, actually, I'm going to just hide it. I like to keep it on there, but we're just going to hide it so it's not in the way. So right down here on the bottom, we have our libraries here. We're going to click on local files. And so we get kind of the capability of being able to browse through our computer to find the video files that we want to import into our Lightworks project. So I am going to go to my desktop. And on my desktop, I have my intro to video editing folder. So this is where I downloaded the video files and decompressed them. So this is this folder here. So I've downloaded the video.zip file from fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes. I opened up the zip file and I got these 4 files here. So I got 3 MP4 files and I got an MP3 file here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this first one. I'm going to hold down the Shift key on my keyboard. I'm going to click on the third one, and you can see now it's selected all 3 of these here. And I'm going to come down to the very bottom. You can see at the very bottom down here, there is a button that says Import. And so I'm going to click Import. And what this will do is this will pull in the 3 different projects. So if I go to Clips, you can kind of see here's my 3 different videos that I have in here. Now, Lightworks gives you a lot of different options about how you actually view and browse through and kind of navigate your different media. Right now, we're in what they call thumbnail view, where we're actually able to see a thumbnail of the different videos that we're working on. I actually tend to prefer up here on the top. You can see if I put my mouse up here on this top little square with the 6 boxes in there, it says toggle between list and tile view. So right now we're actually in tile view. It's not thumbnail view, it's tile view. And if I click on this here, I get list view. And what it'll do is it kind of gives me file names, real IDs. It just gives me a little bit more information. I tend to find this to be a little bit more convenient for how I work with my video editing, but it's all a matter of what you're comfortable using. So now I've imported in the pieces of media I'm doing. We're just doing these 3 pieces of media here. And so now what we're going to do is these are longer pieces of video that we're going to cut smaller pieces out together to put together our video. So now we need to start doing the cutting. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the editing tab, and you can see I come to the editing tab. This top left up here is still that project content tab. So it's the same. In fact, you can see as I switch between them and such, it doesn't change much between one and the other. So they're all here. It's still in my list view. Our sequence is still empty. Our timeline down here is still empty. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to actually go grab my clip sheet, which is this here. I printed out a copy of that there. I just need that briefly, so I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. My I didn't want this. Go away. My printer was just out of reach, so I had to get up to go get it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the Breathtakers video here. So this was kind of a fun, and I'm going to double click on this. And what that does is you can see now it adds in a new box here. And so what this is this is actually previewing the clip that I've selected. And now what I'm able to do is I'm able to see this video. If I wanted to, I can come down here and click play. And what it'll do is it will start playing the video. So this is stuff that got added on from the Internet Archive. And if we jump in and play, you can kind of see the video here as it's going. Now, one of the skills that you start learning to use in video editing is what they call scrubbing. So scrubbing is, if you notice, okay, up here we have our preview of our video up here, and then down below we have a timeline here, and it goes from the beginning of the video here at 0 all the way to the end. You notice there's this little red diamond in there. So this red diamond is the current place, it's the current frame of the video that we're seeing in the preview there. Now you notice right under here, there's this blue text down here. And so this is the current frame information. And so this is, it's measured in hours, minutes, seconds, and then frames. So if you remember when we were talking about frame rates, all of these videos here are 30 frames per second. So what happens is that this is the number of hours. So this frame that we're looking at right now is at 0 hours, 0 minutes, 58 seconds, and it's the 12th frame. Now this will go from 0 to 29, and then once it rolls over to after 29, it'll go back to 0, and the seconds here will click up. In fact, actually, let me just show that there. Boom, boom, boom. Nope, I did that wrong. Okay, hold on. So you can see I'm stepping up, and as soon as I get up to 28, 29, I go to the next one here, and what we're doing is we're paying attention to this right here. I go up to the next one. Here, you can see now it went up to the full other second and started again at 0. So that's where that 30 frames per second is coming in. So the time codes that are on the handout that I gave, this right here, you can see I have hours, minutes, seconds, and then frames. So this is the start of the clip that we want to cut out of the clip, and then the end of the clip. So every clip that we're doing has a start and an end to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the first one, which is at 2 minutes, 8 seconds, and 23 frames. And so I mentioned scrubbing. Scrubbing is basically grabbing this red diamond and actually just kind of running it back and forth. And you can see as I move it to the right, I can actually preview the video. If I move it slower, it moves slower. I can move it fast. And so scrubbing becomes very useful for you to kind of quickly go through footage, because this video here is, let's see, go up here is, I mean, we're looking at, it's about 16 minutes long. I could sit there and for 16 minutes and watch it live and mark down the specific points that I want to use, or I can quickly jump through and see the different scenes. So now what I need to do is I need to go and find the start of the first clip that I want to use. In fact, actually what I'm going to do, let me see if I can make this work. We're going to put that there, and we're going to put this here, just so you can kind of see side by side. And I'm going to make this just a little, hold on. There we go. I'll go back to the full screen video in a second, but just so we can see here, and I'm going to zoom in here so that we can kind of see. There we go. That kind of works, doesn't it? Yeah. You can kind of see this first clip right here above my head that we're looking at there and such. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrub this video here to get as close as I can to 2 minutes, 8 seconds, and the 23rd frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down, and I'm keeping an eye down on this blue time down here, because that's where the current location is. So so at 2 and, okay, so 2:07. Okay, so here I'm pretty close. And now what I can do is I can now step, what they call step to my specific point that I want. And I can use the step. So you can see underneath the timeline here, we have a set of controls. So this control here will move back to the start of the clip. This one here, you can see when I put my mouse over it, gives nice little tooltips about what it'll say. This one here says nudge 1 frame back. And you can also see in there that it gives a little bit of, it gives some keyboard shortcuts in the parentheses. I can use the comma key, or I can use the left arrow. This here will play, or I can hit space to hit play. This will nudge the 1 frame forward. And so what this does, clicking these here allows me, and you can kind of see as this goes up, I can go through a frame at a time, really kind of slow. Or I can also use on my keyboard. And this is where you do want to start learning to use your keyboard shortcuts when you're doing video editing, because it's very helpful and convenient. And a little bit faster. So I can either use the comma to move back a frame, and you can see as I hit the comma, this keeps counting down, 25, 24, 23, 22. If I hit the period key, it moves up. So I'm progressing into the video. I'm moving up a frame, 26, 27, 28, 29, 0. So now I'm in the 2 minutes, 8 seconds, and now I need to move to the 23rd frame. Now, 2 other keyboard shortcuts that are really convenient here is if you look down at your keyboard on your mouse, you notice that next to the comma and the period is the M key, M as in Mary, and the slash key. And so what those do is those allow you to jump 10 frames. So if I hit the slash frame, see how there's right now is 2 minutes, 8 seconds, and 0 frames. I'm going to hit the slash key on my keyboard, and it jumps up to 10 frames on there. If I hit it again, it'll go up to 20. If I hit the M key, M as in Mary, it goes down 10. Why are you not? Oh, why are you not? Hold on. Why are you not doing? Oh. I can go forward, but I can't go. Oh, wow. I have, for some reason, my keyboard shortcuts are messed up on that. Huh, okay. That's not a problem. I can just do things slower. So yeah, so those 4 keys allow you to kind of navigate through the clip that you're looking for until you find the point that we're looking at here. So we're looking for 2:08:23. So there's 23. And you notice the reason why I chose, let me make this bigger again to kind of make things a little bit clearer. The reason why I chose 23 is that if I move back a frame, we have this shot of the plane, and now we move forward, we have now the shot of the bronching bull here. And so this is the start of this clip. Now, let me go. There we go. Let me go back to this and just do this here again. So you notice now I have an in, or the start of the clip, and then I have an out, the end of the clip here. So now that I have found the start of my clip here, I'm at 2:08:23. I'm going to move over to this next set of tools that they have over here, and you can see there's this blue diamond here, and I put my mouse over and such. It says add an in mark, IN mark at the current position, and then in the parentheses is the letter I. So the I is the keyboard shortcut for this. The one over here to the right, so we're skipping over this middle one, and we're going over here to this here and such. What it does is it adds an out. So you use these here to mark the start and the end of the clips that you want to create. So here I am at the start of my clip. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to mark it as the start of my clip. Boop. And now you can see here that my little diamond that was red before is now half red and half blue. And the reason why it's half red and half blue is that the red and the blue diamonds are kind of on top of each other. So it's showing me that there's 2 diamonds there of the 2 different. The red is the current place in the video that we're seeing. The blues are our in and out points. So now what I want to do is I want to now move my red diamond to this next point on the clip here. We're going to go to 0:02. So 0 hours, 2 minutes, 15 seconds, 12 frames. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ahead, and I can either press the key individually, or I can hold it down and it will move forward pretty quickly. So you kind of get used to using the keyboard shortcuts, the period, the comma, and holding them down to kind of move through the footage at a speed that you can kind of control and kind of get where you need to go. So we're going to 2:15, 12. So you can see, once again, the difference between 12 and 13 is that it actually changes scenes. So I chose the end of the scene here at 12. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out. I'm going to hit the out key here. And so now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. It's still not going to really be easy to see, but you can see that there are now 2 blue diamonds. And so the clip that I've selected is in between those 2 blue diamonds. Now, Lightworks has several different ways of working with the clips here. One of them there is I can go over here, and there's this there's these 2 other buttons here at the end of my toolbar here. Replace either one of these here. If I do insert or replace, what they'll do is they'll take this clip and they'll dump it down into my timeline down here. The advantage of doing this here is it actually makes transitions. I was talking about transitions earlier. It makes doing transitions a lot easier. The downside is that it doesn't allow you to organize your clips in a way that I kind of like to organize them. I like to kind of give things names so that I know where pieces are and get all my pieces together before I start arranging them. So the other option that you can do, and what we're going to be doing for tonight's class, is we're going to be making what they call subclips. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I've marked my in and out by my 2 blue diamonds here, I'm going to then right click on the video. And when I right click, I'm going to get this right click menu on here. I'm going to come down to make, and then in make, there's going to be a subclip option. I'm going to do subclip. And what it'll do now is it'll add a little subclip. You can see over here on my project settings over here, on my project contents, there's different filters. I can look at everything. And so here's all the different things on here. I can look at sequences, and so kind of sequences are different pieces, different timelines that we're putting together here, and then you can rearrange the sequences if you want to. Subclips are little pieces of the clips. What it is, it's taking the clips. So all the videos that we've imported in here are called clips, and a subclip is a piece from that clip there. It's its own separate little video piece. The reason why I like to do this here is that I can come in here now and I can like rename this here, and I can call it Breathtakers 01, because that's what's on the handout here. You can see, let me, come on, make it big, thank you. You can see Breathtakers 01. So then I know that this is the clip that I want in that place there. So I have done a lot of talking and a lot of demonstrating here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate very quickly how to do another, we're going to do the next clip on the clips here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you time to kind of go off into your own Lightworks and kind of make a few more clips. Now, if I notice there are some people watching, if you're not actually following along and doing this in your own version of Lightworks right now, let me know in the chat and I can kind of continue right away, or I'll give you, and what I'll do is I'll give about, we'll say about 10 minutes actually to kind of go in and do as many of the clips on the on here that you can. And then we'll start kind of working things together. So let me do one more demonstration of making the clip. So the next clip that I have, actually let me rearrange these again. The next one that we have here is at 2:15:13. So we're actually like really close here to where we want to be. So I'm going to step up. There I am at 2:15:13. And I'm going to mark my end point, my I, my starting point. So I'm going to hit I on my keyboard. I tend to like use I and O. Though I can use the little clicky things over here. And now I'm going to go to my next time code here, which is 2 minutes, 19 seconds, and 8 frames. So we're going to go ahead, 2 minutes, 19:08. So there we are. And I'm going to hit O on my keyboard for out. And it marks the endpoint, and you can kind of see it's a little bit harder to see because they're really kind of close together, but I do have my 2 blue diamonds there. I'm going to then right click again, make subclip, and then it will add it to the subclips. And then what I can do, and I'm going to make this big again, is I can go in and I can just rename this Breath Takers 02. And so now what happens is now I know what these two different clips are, and when I add them into my timeline, I'll know what they are. So go and take 10 minutes and work through. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat, and I can kind of repeat this process. I'm going to work through and kind of make a bunch of clips myself, so you can kind of watch me as I'm doing it. But I can also, if you have a question, ask them in the chat, and I'll be able to re-demonstrate again. So I'm just going to mute my microphone as I'm doing this here. But again, let me know if you have any questions. I'll just put a little bit of music kind of playing, so it's not just silence there. But again, let me know if you have any questions as we kind of go and create these clips. And we'll go for about another 7-8 minutes. All right, just finish up the last clip that you're doing and right click, make subclip. Okay, so I realized my Coney Island clip time codes have gotten a little off over time. All right, so hopefully you've had the opportunity to make some clips and practice. I didn't see any questions in the chat, so I just kind of went through and I have made a bunch here. And you can see as I was going through and kind of just renaming them in kind of the order that I made them there. So now that we've made our subclips and kind of pulled all the clips here, now we get to actually start arranging them in the order that we want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to I have my preview window here for the individual clips that I was working on. This was what we were working on to make the clips from. I'm going to actually close this because I no longer need it right now. And now what I can do to add clips from our project contents here is actually really as easy as drag and drop. So I'm going to go grab my first Breathtakers clip that I did here. I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to drag down to my timeline, and I'm just going to drop it down here. You can see now it just drops down into place. It has this little kind of like reddish color right now. And so this here right now, this timeline here is showing from 0 minutes all the way up to like 4 minutes, 4 minutes and 20 seconds. You can see this takes up just a little piece of it there. It's not a long video. But what I can do now is I can go and I can just start dropping all of my video pieces down into the timeline. It doesn't matter what order you put them in. My original plans for this class once a time was that there was a specific order, but we're not really doing that there now. Just move them down, and don't worry if there is a black gap in between the different spaces. So just grab the clips that you've grabbed up here one at a time, and just kind of just drop them down into the timeline down on the bottom. And you'll notice that when we drop them down here, the V1 track, our video track, has the video up here. And then each of them also comes with an audio track. So an A1, A2 here. And so if we played the video, we'd also be able to hear the audio on there. And so what happens is now, if I move this over, this is just like when we were working with the clips and doing the kind of the different pieces of the clips, that red diamond that indicated the current place that the preview was showing. This red diamond over here shows the current place that our preview screen up here is going to show. And this is the same, this red diamond down here. If I move this back and forth, you can see it moves this one back and forth. And when I move this one here, they're kind of linked together. And you can see I have my same set of tools down here as well too. And there's also a button here for record a voiceover. I think that's new. I just downloaded, this is the newest edition, newest version of this software. They just had an update this month. And so this might be something that's new for that there. So you can see there's kind of built-in capability to do voiceover a specific scene. And then, so it's easily to kind of tie it into that scene there. But yeah, if I move this over now, so if I scrub through here, remember that scrubbing that we called, or I can scrub here, and you can see as this red diamond and the line moves over the clip, it shows the preview up here. So you can see I have a bunch of sections of black in between all these different clips, but now you can kind of see the different clips that I've grabbed and I've moved down into my timeline here. So we have the start of assembling our video. Is we've cut the different pieces out of the videos that we want to use here. And now we've dropped them down here in, I'm going to say this was the order that I want them to be put into there. If I decide that, hey, I want something different, I can take this clip and I can say move this into a different place. So this is where that nonlinear editing, the nonlinear part of the nonlinear editing software comes in. It's my microphone. There we go. Is that I can now move these clips around into whatever order I want to do. I could even have cut them. I cut them in whatever order I wanted to do. I didn't have to cut them and assemble them into the specific order until I'm dropping them into my timeline here. Now, when you're moving the clips around on here, okay. One of the things to be careful is be careful about kind of overlap, because if I do this, it starts to cover up and cut off that part of the video. And you can see now when I move it away, I've lost that part of the video. And actually I have to, Control Z will undo. So if I take this and I kind of put this right here in the middle, and then I go move it away, I now have a gap in the middle there. I've actually deleted, I've lost that middle part of that clip. Control Z will undo. There's also right up here, we have undo and redo buttons. If you find that it's like really hard to see your different clips down here because they're all like really short, because these are pretty short clips, and there's right up here at the top left of the timeline is a little zoom, so you can zoom in to kind of make them larger, and then you can just kind of scroll back and forth. Oops, yeah, here we go. Scroll back and forth to see the different parts. But if I wanted to move this here and kind of be and not worry about writing or copying over, like if I move this here, it actually completely replaces. You'll notice that when I put my mouse over it and click and hold, so I'm going to do is I'm going to click and hold and start dragging. You notice I get this little tooltip where my mouse says, and it might be hard to see on the screen, but it says replace, which means right now in what's known as replace mode. Now, if I click and move, so now it says replace, and I hold down the shift key, it now ends up being called insert. And so now what I do is, like, if I take this here, actually what I'll do is let me take this one. Hold on. Take this, and I hold down the shift key, and I go and insert, and I drop it into here. What it does is it actually cuts this clip in half and fits this one in the middle, but it doesn't delete, it doesn't erase or replace the footage that's there before. By holding the shift key allows you to prevent that kind of overwriting. Okay, there we go. So now let me zoom out again so you can see my whole timeline. So that's how you can kind of move things around. If I wanted to move this thing around and say into this clip here is a little bit large, but I want to move it into this space here, it'll just be a matter of holding on the shift key and like just kind of dropping it into here. Whoops, not what I wanted to do. Shift and put it there, and then it will move the timeline. It will basically kind of make space for it there. And so it's important to know the difference between replace, which is just moving and dragging it and it will write over something, versus holding down the shift key and getting insert, which will allow me to insert it into. Oh God, what did that do? Okay, there we go. Insert it into place. I get a lot of use out of undo as I'm doing this here because it allows me to recover from mistakes. You'll also notice that when I dropped all of these down and such, I didn't really care about the black space that's in between. And this is actually, if I move my mouse over here, you can see this is there's just black video here. And the reason for that there is now that I have the clips kind of into the order, I could move them. If I click on this here and move it over, it will actually click, it will kind of snap onto the other clip there. So then they'll kind of fasten to each other. So I could go through and I could drag all of these here and close the gaps. Lightworks does give us an easier method for doing this there. If I right click into this black gap here, there's just an option in the right click menu that says close gap. And what it'll do is it'll just drag everything. And I can do it at the start of the video, close gap. And then I can just kind of close gap in between all of my video clips. Close gap and close gap. There we go. So now all of them are now concurrent. They all kind of run together. And if I go put my frame here at the start and hit play, you can see is that it will now play through the clips. And you can kind of see now we're about to jump over to a new clip and jump over to a new clip. And you can kind of see how it's going. It's just moving through the timeline and it's moving from clip to clip. So at the very heart of it right now, we have assembled our video. We have put it together here. It moves from one clip to the other. We could output this here and play it, and we'd have our video clip going on. We'd have our little video there. So that is the heart of kind of working with the nonlinear video editors. You're able to kind of put them down into the timeline and kind of play through it there and such. So class over. No. We actually have some more things that we need to do because right now it's really kind of rough. It goes from one clip right into another, which actually is fine. It's what they call a jump cut. A jump cut is this here where it abruptly goes from one clip into the other. It's a very common filmmaking technique. You see it all the time. It's pretty much what most films and TV shows use. But you can also add in other transitions. So you can do things like fades and wipes. And different transitions kind of give you a kind of smooth move from between one and the other. The other thing that makes this video really rough is the fact that here, let me go put this over here, is that we have the audio. All of these video clips, most of these video clips came with their own audio. If I play this here, we get the sound here from the city video, and now it moves over to the kids playing baseball. And it's a completely different music. And then we move over to this video, which didn't have its own audio, so now it's silent. And it's silent for the next one. And then abruptly, we're going to get sound again. If I go here, it's going to start playing. And we're going to get the sound playing again. So what we want, so in order to kind of neaten up, kind of clean up and freshen up this video here, is we're going to go and look at it, putting in transitions. So we're going to kind of make the kind of the shift between the different videos a little smoother in some of the cases, and then we're also going to replace the audio with our own audio sound, the MP3 file. Remember when we downloaded the files here, we also downloaded this this audio file here. So we're going to actually put that in there as our own audio. So first off, let's look at transitions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just zoom in a bit. So this kind of fills up a little bit more of my toolbar here. So we're able to see, and I'm able to kind of interact closer with the interact closer with the different video clips and kind of see them. So I'm able to kind of, instead of it being so small, because here it can be kind of tough to kind of deal. And if I go here, it's even zoom out even more. I can't zoom out anymore, but by zooming in, it just kind of gives me a little bit more control over how much of the video I'm working with at a time on there. So what I'm going to do is right here. So if you notice, when I put my mouse between the different clips, you'll notice that I get these like white brackets kind of going around the clips. There's, and I can't demonstrate with my mouse, but you'll see that there's like a white bracket. And if I move it a little bit to the right, you can see now there's just a bracket around the left edge of the right clip. Or if I move it over to the left, I get it, and it just moves around the edge. So what these are is these are kind of these are handles for these clips, and so you can use these actually to lengthen or shorten the clip as you need to. Putting it right in between means that I'm actually working with the space, the transition between those clips. I'm working with kind of that connection between the clips. So if I right click here, you'll notice right up at the top up here as I have a transitions. And there's several different transitions that they offer here. There's a dissolve. So what a dissolve will do is it will show the first clip, and the first clip will kind of like dissolve away as if you poured acid on it. It will kind of melt away like ice does, and then the other clip will show up behind it. So it'll kind of disappear one into another. A Lumo Wipe is like a wipe, where I think it's, instead of it being like a dark going on there, such, actually, you know what? Okay, transition between the images based on the luminance. So it'll do a transition where if you, especially if you, this works if you have a like a dark scene going into a light scene. This will kind of help transition so that you're not like blinding, or like all of a sudden your audience is like not all of a sudden going from a really bright scene into dark and their eyes are kind of dazed. This will kind of ease that light transition happening. A push will actually push one frame over and put in the next clip into its place. So one push, it's kind of, you have this here and such, and this will kind of just push it over out the side. A squeeze, see if they tell me what this will do. Okay, that one doesn't have a tooltip, but a squeeze will kind of probably squeeze, it will actually probably bring in the pieces into the middle, and then a wipe will do what it says. And I'm surprised it doesn't give me, actually the dissolve is probably our fade. A fade is how I normally hear it called. So we'll put in a dissolve transition. Duration, and I'm going to click add. Okay, and so you notice, and this is actually one of the things I wanted to bring up here with Lightworks. This will bring up, and it says there is insufficient incoming and outgoing media to add the transition here. And so what that basically means is that there is not, when it adds the transition, I'm going to use this kind of paper here to kind of indicate, kind of blocking my face here. Let me bring this up here so you can kind of see a little bit clearer. Is that right now these clips here are kind of butting up against each other right there on the edges. You can kind of see the edges kind of meeting up there. The transition needs to have some footage from here that starts going into the dissolve, that starts fading away, and then this one here needs to have some dissolve as well too. So there needs to be kind of an overlap between them to make that transition work. And what this is saying right now is that it's saying that there's not enough overlap between, because there isn't any overlap. These clips are not overlapping with each other. There isn't any overlap to make that transition work. Now this is in Lightworks, this is like the one thing, almost every other video editor I've used will allow me just to drop this transition and it will make that additional footage on either side. But here, we have to kind of do a little bit of kind of working to kind of make the transition work into this space here. So if I wanted to make this, the transition to happen here, let me right click and go back to transitions, and you can kind of see right now the duration for this here is 1 second. So it's 30 frames, because remember we're doing 30 frames per second. I need to have 30 frames of overlap. I need to have 1 second of overlap to make this transition work in between there. If I go to frames, you can see it's just 30 here. Actually, what happens if I do from here? Okay, still insufficient outgoing media. Okay, yeah, so because what it does is it doesn't want to cut off the media. So what I need to do is I need to create 30 frames of overlap in order to make this work. And so the easiest way to do that is to take 15 seconds from either frame or from either clip. So what I'm going to do now is, you notice once again, I'm putting my mouse on the timeline here. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this little, oh, you're not actually seeing what I'm looking at. There we go. So I'm back here again. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my mouse right here on the middle again, where I'm putting the transition. Instead of putting it in the middle, I'm going to move it a little bit to the left. So now I'm looking at just this bracket on the right edge of the clip, and I'm going to click once. And you'll notice now it's turned that white bracket here into yellow. And so what that's saying is that this is kind of selected right now. I've selected the right edge of this clip. And now I'm going to use my my period and comma keys. Remember we were using those before when we were selecting our clips. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use I think it's the period key, the comma key, because the comma key moves back this way. My camera is reversed, so I have to make sure I'm pointing the right direction. It moves it this way where the mouse is going. I'm going to move this way by 15 frames. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the comma key 15 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, the easier way to do that there is, if I remember correctly, I was telling you that the M and the slash keys will do 10 frames, will nudge 10 frames. I could hit the M key, M for Mary, once for 10 frames, and then move and then hit the comma 5 times. And that's what I'll do on this other. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click again and unselect that. So it's no longer selected. I'm going to move over to the right clip over here and click. And so now I can see I have this yellow bracket right around the left side of this clip here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the slash key, which will now nudge this clip over 10, and then I'm going to do 5 more with the period key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so now what I've done is now I've actually into this space in the middle now, I have basically hidden 30 frames of footage, 15 from either clip. And so if I played this, we would not see it between there and such. So each of these clips now are about half a second shorter than they were before. But Lightworks still sees that footage in the middle. So now I can go in between, transition, add my dissolve for 30 frame, and hit add. Overlapping cut point. The duration is okay. Okay, so I may not have put in my full 15 or 30 frames there. It's kind of strange in some ways how it kind of works. But yeah, so now you can see now though, is now it's added in between the two clips. There's now this dissolve in there. And what does that look like? Let's play it. And you can kind of, actually what I'll do is I'm going to go here so you can watch this video box up here and we'll be able to see how that goes. You can kind of see it's, it was a little fast because it's only 1 second long. So let me go through it actually at a slower speed. So I'm going through a frame at a time, and now we're into the dissolve. And now you can kind of see how it fades one picture over into the other. So let me go and actually do another transition here between these two other clips. So I'm going to click, hold on, click, don't select. Okay, let me make this a little larger because it makes it a little easier to read. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the right side of this clip here, select that, and we're going to move it 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to click to unselect it, and I'm going to click to select the other one, and we're going to do 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's my 15 or my 30 frames, and I'm going to right click, transition, and let's do a wipe here and add. I still don't know why it says it doesn't have enough overlap because I've done 30 frames there, but okay, so it's done that there. Actually, how many frames is this? Oh wait, you know what? I think I know the problem. Remember, I was playing from here. I need to do centered here. There we go. Add. There we go. So now we actually, okay, so this was actually only a 15-second wipe that actually made this clip shorter than before. Now we have, okay, so now if I play through this a little bit slower, you can kind of see the wipe happening. It's wiping. Here's the incoming frame. Here's the outgoing frame. And it's going through. And now we're into the new clip. So it can be a little tedious going in and adding in those transitions in Lightworks, but it does allow you to, because now if I go and play this, you can kind of see it more smoothly goes between the different clips. So if we get down to the end of this one here where there's not a transition, you can see it just abruptly cuts over to the next there and such. I can put in a little bit smoother transition. So that's what the transitions do. So what you need to do is you need to add, if you're going to put in, you can make that transition longer. If I right click, go to transitions, right now it's at 30 frames. If I wanted to go longer, 2 seconds, I can make it 60 frames, but then I need to clear out 30 frames from either clip on either side. I need to kind of make sure I have a 30 frame or 60 frame overlap. So you need to make sure that you have an overlap. And you can balance it however you want. You could make one clip have 40 frames be the overlap, with the other one be 20. It all depends on like where you want to see when the transition finishes, where you want to see it show up. The other way of kind of dealing with this kind of thing, because you notice when I do this transition on here and such, is that we don't see the end of the baseball players. Like we actually don't see him like actually like catch the ball there. Or we don't see the start of the bronking bull there. If you wanted to make sure that you saw all of the clip, you can then add in, when you're making the cuts, making your subclips here, you can add in what they call handles. And what handles are is you can add in, say, like if you know that all your transitions are going to be 30 frames, you can add in 15 seconds to the start of, or 15 frames to the start of every clip. So what you do is you find your start of your clip and then you move that to the start 15 frames. And then when it adds it in there and such, it's already adding in that extra footage for the overlap. Just the kind of things to think about there. And it can be a little confusing. Please let me know if there are questions. So the next thing that we're going to look at here is that we've played a little bit with the transitions. Now we want to play with the audio, because one thing that we've noticed as we go through is that if I play, each video has its own audio clip to it. But we want to put our own audio into this. The original intent when I designed this class was that we're actually putting together like our own like music video using archival videos, where we're putting a bunch of different clips from different archive videos and we're adding music to it. So that's what we're kind of going to do here. So the first thing I need to do is, if I come down here, I am going to, let me see if I can remember. I need to remember exactly. Move, nope. Here. I delete this. Okay, hold on. Okay, yep. So what I need to do is I need to actually remove the audio from the videos before. So what I do is, remember we were talking about, like, we have our multi-track, multiple tracks here and such. I'm going to come to the audio track, that there's something in here, and I'm going to right click over here on the left, and I'm just going to choose delete. And what it does is it just removes. Boom. There is now if I play this video, it's silence. There's no audio, there's no sound, because there's nothing audio being added to it there. So now what I want to do is I want to go and drop my own audio into the video here. So I'm going to come back up to my project contents here. Remember when we were working this before, I'm going to open, actually we can go back to log. So we were working with before. I'm going to go back to my local files, and I had a file in my folder here. I had this MP3 file, which is the audio file. And so if I click on this here, and I'm going to import it just like I imported the video clips before. And that's one of the things to kind of keep in mind when you're working in a video editor like Lightworks or like Premiere or Final Cut Pro, all of them and such, is that they tend to treat all media the same, whether it's a video, whether it's audio, whether it's an image. And then things like credits, or so your opening and closing credits, those are just clips like all the other clips that we're working on and such. So once you kind of get your head around the idea that all this media actually gets treated the same. So like this audio here, the only thing that Lightworks sees is that this looks like a clip, just like all the ones down here, but it doesn't have any video to it. It doesn't have anything to preview over here. It just has sound. But I can work with it just like I work with all the other videos. And so just like before, remember before when we took all of our sub clips and we dropped them down into the timeline? I can grab my audio file and I can just bring it down and just drop it right down here. Boom. And now this is now the audio that will play with the video that's playing. So now if I hit play, we get the music playing behind the video. So now I've added in my own audio to the video that we're watching. And once the audio is in, you can see actually the audio is actually considerably longer than the rest of my video there. So I can do things like I can, if I double click on this here, I get my little like edit window that I had before and such. I can cut this to however length that I want and take that length and drop it into place. I can shorten this if I wanted to here to match the length of my video. And then I can do things like, for example, I can put in, where is it? Can I? And I want to, there are ways to do kind of a fade, but it's not letting me, oops, do it, as I can then fade the audio out at the end. Oop, hold on, what's going on here? Why is this, wow, this is, oh, you know what it is? Because that's selected. That's selected. Unselect. Oh, there we go. Okay. Again, it's I don't use this all the time, so there's times where I do kind of. And there, can't I fade this? Fade. Okay, but yeah, so you can do things like fades. If I come here into audio, oh, there it is. I can drop the fade. I'd have to actually add in a key, I think, if I do that there. There we go. There we go. So now I can do like a fade. So now what happens is I get a little fade to 0 at the end. Or a little fade out of the audio. And I usually find, from my experience, actually a 2 to 3 second fade is magic when it comes to audio, is that you can actually go from like one clip to another, like fading 2 seconds and then 2 seconds up. 2 seconds is actually a really good kind of fade length. So I'm actually near the end of this class, unfortunately. So I didn't really get to show how to add in like the titles and the credits. But I hope I did kind of introduce to you kind of a way to kind of get into the software and kind of be able to start cutting your clips and kind of arranging things. It's the best way to kind of continue and working with this year is to get in and play around with it. If you want to continue your learning with video editing and video production and with Lightworks, let me go back to the handout here. Pick this up here. Let me make this so we can see it. On the 4th page of the handout here, I do have some information about further study and practice. So up here at the top, the library does offer access to Udemy, which is an online learning site brought to us by Gale. You'll want to go to this link here, infotrack.gale.com/all this here. It will ask you for your library card number and your PIN. So if you have a Ferguson library card, you'll enter that in and you'll enter in your PIN number. And then you will need to create a you'll need to sign in with a Google or Microsoft account. They do require that there. Once you're signed in, I do have a list of several different courses here that might be kind of a good place to continue your learning with video production and video editing. And if you want to continue working with Lightworks, I have some links here to go and continue learning with Lightworks. So Lightworks has very good documentation written. So that's this here. So it's basically like their help files tell you how to do different things. Their community forum has been invaluable to helping me learn how to do various things that I'm teaching you in this class and to do my own video editing that I do in Lightworks. And then finally, there's the video tutorials. They have a bunch of tutorials. So if my tutorials were a little bit distracting or confusing and not really great, you can kind of go, their tutorials are a lot better than what I can do. They know the software a lot better and explain it a lot better. And they'll get into a lot more things like doing the titles and credits, which I kind of ran out of time for. So I highly recommend checking out definitely the video tutorials to continue with Lightworks. And this is the same thing kind of works with any video editing software. If you've gotten a taste for it and you want to try doing things in like Windows Movie Maker or iMovie, or you want to step up and do something more in Lightworks or move up to like Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro, just going on to like Google and doing a search, or onto actually YouTube's really fabulous with that. Go onto YouTube and do a search for like Final Cut Pro tutorials, and there'll be a really great set of videos out there to learn. The final thing I just want to kind of offer or ask for you to do, that if you have taken this class, sat here for me the last 2 hours and have enjoyed this, I do ask that you please go and complete my my survey here, my feedback survey. So it's at this address here, www.projectoutcome.org/en/53236. This address is also, or this survey is also available on the online tech pages right here at the bottom of the introduction to video editing. This link here will take you out to the survey as well too. So I do appreciate if you will go and complete that. And please let me know if there are any questions in either of the chat, either the chat on YouTube or the chat here on the online tech pages. I'll sit around for a couple more minutes to answer questions. Coming up tomorrow, we do have our final class of this session here, which is looking at how to record your video, record your computer using free software. So if you want to record tutorials or demonstrations, or just record stuff that you have on your computer, we'll be going over that tomorrow night. And then the library is going to be taking a little bit of a break going forward with classes. We're going to be looking at trying to figure out how we're going to continue doing the classes in our current pandemic state. I am going to be taking the recordings of all the variety of classes that I've done so far from April. And I'm going to be sending a series of kind of videos that will be kind of more asynchronous on YouTube. So look for those on the YouTube channel if you want to go back and kind of relearn or recover any, or kind of recap anything that you've learned here at the Ferguson Library. So with that, thanks for anybody who joined me. Please let me know if you have any questions, and please complete the survey here. And I thank you for joining me, and hope to see you tomorrow night at 7 for recording your computer using OBS. Well, thank you very much for attending, and with that, I bid you a good night and adieu from the Ferguson Library.